I would like to welcome everybody to the first official episode of the Unsubstantiated Genius. And we're deviating a little bit from our old podcast. So if you've been listening to us for the last, since October, almost a year, you know that we've been doing interviews. Well, we're changing the format a little bit to discussing conversations that will help empower and change people's lives. So instead of the interviews, I'm going to bring on extraordinary individuals to have extraordinary conversations.
Wow.
So
you set the bar kind of high, man.
With that being said, please go subscribe, like, follow Unsubstantiated Genius. And in a few moments, we're going to dive in. My guest today is Jarvis. He is the original morning hero and runs an extraordinary club called the ACG, which is the Accelerated Growth Club. That's a mouthful. I like ACG way better. And we had a great conversation about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we should have gotten that on camera, man.
It's always like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Like, where's the camera when you need one?
It is. Your glasses.
Yeah.
We could have gotten that. You would have been holding it the entire time. But we're trying to recreate that conversation. So thank you for coming in, man. I appreciate it. Like, it's always great talking to you. I have fun. And it's always like, there's people that you talk to that don't lift your energy up. You're always one of the ones that I leave with a higher energy level than I entered. And I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. I feel the same way, which is why I like you said, there's some people that fill your cup. Mm-hmm. You know, you walk away with more than you walked in with. Mm-hmm. And you're definitely one of those people. You're just filled with so much that you overflow. And so I just thank you for being, I can be an input source for you to overflow to sometimes.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. So let's just dive in. What was our conversation?
Yeah.
Just to bring listeners up to speed.
Carl's going to be a guest speaker at Accelerated Growth Club. And I asked him to come be a speaker because he has an amazing story. If you aren't familiar with the story, it's just this, I'm sure that's going to be, a whole episode on its own just to dive into your story. And so he's walking me through this story of pitfalls and trials and tribulations and, growth moments of his life. And it kind of has a turning point. And then now everything is just accelerating in this hyper growth mode. And I was trying to really get down to the bottom of what was that change moment for you? How did you just, completely reverse the course of your life? And for you was just, well, I just did it. It's just like, I just made the decision. I just changed my modality and I just woke up different the next day and I just did it. And I was like, well, wait a minute. That's just a very oversimplification of a really, really deep moment. Like if it was just that easy, no one would be fat. No one would smoke cigarettes. Everyone would achieve their goals if it was just a product of just make the decision and do it. Like that's a very, very deep trouble. Like so many people struggle with that. Many people know they want to do things, but it's still something prevents them from doing it. They can't shake the habit. They can't do the things they need to do. And so that kicked us into this whole conversation with, how do you do that? How do you re-engineer your brain? How did you rewire your brain and reprogram yourself to be able to do everything you needed to do? Because that, if we can harness that and be able to give that to people, a formula that they can use to rewire their brain, boy, we could sell it for millions. And I think through the course of like an hour-long conversation we had, we really got it down to a succinct formula, to the point where I'm going to have you come speak at one of my events to share it with everyone. It was so powerful. So that led us into this conversation. How do you reprogram yourself? Because that's not as easy as just saying, oh, well, just do it. You know what you want to do, just do it. Many people struggle with that.
That's very, very true. And it's kind of funny that, like you were talking about, there was a moment in my life where it just kind of turned on. And the same could be said with you. You hit rock bottom and then you decided to work on the process.
Totally.
Rather than the endpoint, the goal, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
And so when you hit that point, you made a choice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But before that, you had all these habits that were pre-ingrained into your head for 20 plus years, right?
Totally.
Okay. So let's dive into how your brain actually works from a layman's perspective. Okay. Every single thought, idea, action, your brain is firing neurons and neuron connections. And every time you have a thought, that connection or that multiple of connections, they fire.
Mm-hmm.
And your body is a machine that wants to be as efficient as possible. So every time that you have that thought or that idea, it layers on a sheath around that connection and insulates it. So it requires less energy to fire.
Gotcha.
So that is directly related to your habits. Your habits are just ultra efficient neural connections firing. That's all they are.
They're just pathways that are burned in.
Yes, yes. So when you made that switch to focusing on the process, you decided to get rid of all the pathways or over the course of a period of time, get rid of the pathways that focused on the end goal. Right?
Yeah.
And you made the switch to focusing on the process. If I do this will and over a period of time, this will be the result. But I just focus on that process.
Right.
Okay. So if you know that your brain is trying to become as efficient as possible to conserve your energy, and those habits are simply just super efficient neuro connections, then that means that the reverse process is true. So, in order to change a habit, one that's been ingrained for 20 years or for some people 60 plus years, you have to become conscious of it. That was the first step that we talked about, becoming conscious.
Yeah.
And that part's kind of easy. Like a lot of people know what they're doing wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. They know what they need to do or know what they need to stop doing.
Exactly. But you brought up a massive point on how to overcome that habit.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in a little bit. But the first step is literally becoming conscious. And I wear a rubber band around my wrist that I snap. Every single time that I have a action, a thought process, an idea that does not end up serving me, it's a pattern interrupt. And when you made that change that morning where you decided to focus on processes after you read the book, okay, that was your pattern interrupt. And it was so massive because of where you were at, that it provided essentially a blank slate for you to go and recreate new neural pathways.
Yeah.
So for most people, they don't hit that moment where it's just like there's so much pain and pressure.
Right. That moment of disgust.
Yes.
They just have to do something different.
Yes.
They can't keep going in the same pace that they've been going.
Yeah. Most people don't hit that. I mean, they can variations of it, but they really don't hit that moment. That was a very powerful moment for you. Yeah. And that changed your processing skills, if you will. And it allowed you to start making choices to decay those old habits and create new ones in its place.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that process of decaying, if you start interrupting that thought pattern, that idea, that action, your brain will actually identify that connection as using too much energy, and it will start to physically decay. And during that process, you can literally start making new choices, new thoughts, new processes.
So you're saying that the pathway that's been burned in, this habit or this way of thinking or this mindset that's been burned in, you're saying that over time, that pathway that's thick and been layered can slowly start to wither away.
Yeah, it's just like a wound. Okay, if you think about it, if you get a gash along your arm, it will take months to heal, right? Because your body has to make new cells. Those new cells got to get organized and stitched together, layer upon layer upon layer. Okay, your brain operates in the same way. So you think about it, if that thought process or that neural connection is a wound that you want to get rid of, it first needs to decay, which is the reverse process of your body stitching together a wound. But it's the same time length because your body doesn't make cells at a massive rate besides when you're very, very young. So if you have something that's ingrained for 20, 30 years, that is in this equation, a massive wound that will take the same duration of time to heal, essentially get rid of, because your body has to process it out. It has to decay. It has to allow those cells to be absorbed. But during that process, you can work on building new neural connections.
But so I would say the first step, though, is you have to stop doing whatever that thing is. It can't decay while it's still in use, right?
Yes.
The very first thought is you got to find something else to do instead of that thing.
Yes. It's the pattern interrupt to become conscious. Once you become conscious, you can make different choices. And that's where we really dove into a couple of weeks ago, because you kept asking me why would people knowingly do the same things, even though they know it's bad for them? How can they get over that hump?
Yeah.
And I had to think about it. And I was like, well, to me, it's just, you just make another choice. Like, it's simple, because I don't want to do this thing. So,
and it may sound simple to us because we're high achievers and we're on this wavelength, and we're on this mindset, and we're on this path of just achieving our goals. And for us, we're visionaries. So the strength of our vision outweighs the strength of any of these things that deter us. So it's easy for us. But I have people that are actively and knowingly killing themselves.
Yeah.
And they can't stop doing whatever it is they're doing. Like, even to the point where they know if they keep on this path, they'll die, and it's still not strong enough for them. So it's different from us. For those people, how can you just tell them just to stop if the fact of death doesn't scare them enough to have them stop whatever that bad habit is that they're doing?
Well, it's all incentivizing. And what I mean by that is, in order for someone to cultivate a new habit, they have to be incentivized. So their pain or pleasure receptors in their brain have to fire when they do that habit or thought or process or action. Okay. So if you incentivize your actions and thoughts in a way that gives yourself pleasure or pain, this pattern interrupt is a pain. Okay. It starts chemically programming your body to react in a certain way to a certain pattern. Okay. Now, what you're discussing is, let's take smoking. Okay. When you smoke, your body is becoming dependent upon the chemical reactions within your within that cigarette reacting with your body. Okay. It becomes a habit. It becomes an addiction. That cigarette physically changes your chemical makeup within your body when you smoke it. And your body starts craving it and craving it more and more and more, because why? It wants that dopamine. It wants that chemical release. Okay. So in order to change that, like we spoke about, one of the things I like to talk about now, and you termed it very, very well, is stacking. So taking not only a single pleasure point that you can put in place of that action, but then stacking multiple pleasure or pain points in a stack. So that stack of new actions, new processes, new thoughts is greater than the chemical dependency or chemical release of that cigarette.
The pleasure of the cigarette, right?
Yeah.
The pleasure of this new activity outweighs the pleasure of the old.
Exactly. So in that case, if you have someone that's smoking a lot and they want to quit, but they're so dependent on it because they've been doing it for 30, 40 years, you got to start literally having them identify new pleasure centers to replace that. Okay. You can say, well, if they're older, do you like your grandkids? Most grandparents just light up.
Yeah.
Whenever you talk about their grandkids, and that thought process is triggering a chemical reaction within their body that floods their body with a certain chemical state that gives them that emotion. Okay, so that to me is a higher order of magnitude of a pleasure. Okay, then you can talk about, well, what about cost? Cigarettes are expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pain point. So you start asking questions that identify certain pleasure or pain points, and you start stacking them. And eventually, with enough stacking, they'll become conscious of all these benefits.
Yeah.
And that will outweigh that need for that chemical reaction from that single suck of cigarettes.
I love that. So identifying other things that you're drawn to that really light you up, give you joy.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that moment, that self-aware moment where you have that, where you're presented with this choice, either I do this or I don't, either I smoke this cigarette or I don't. Like at that moment, you have to be consciously aware
Yes.
of, okay, by doing this, I'm turning my back on all of this, on my family, my grandchildren, my budget, my finances. It's like you have to actively kind of balance out the cost versus benefit of doing of either choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it becomes a conscious process, because when you start stacking benefits or pain points, and those start being associated with that thought process, that's when your body will start to take over. Well, it builds these new neuron connections. So while you're actively decaying the physical act of smoking, you are incentivizing your body through chemical reactions to build new neural connections. So that becomes the default habit.
Gotcha. So it's not as hard anymore.
No.
So at the beginning, it may sound like you have to go through this deep decision-making process of, do I do this or no? Because if I do that, I have to, no, I like my grandchildren. Like, it's a very deep decision process, but you're saying over time, that decision becomes more and more second nature. It's not, over time, then it's not even a decision anymore.
Yeah. It's
you just default to this new direction because you've kind of withered away the other option.
Yes, exactly. And that right there is powerful, because that is something you can take to anyone in the world, regardless of what they're going through.
Yeah.
And have them start making different actions, different thought processes, and different outcomes, which that's what this is all about, is outcomes.
Yeah.
A great example. And for a lot of people who are listening to this who may be debating whether or not it's true, I want to bring up an example.
Yeah.
Okay. When people are pissed off, do you ever see them become instantly happy?
No.
Okay. What about the reverse? When people are happy, have you ever seen them get instantly pissed off?
Oh yeah, get cut off in traffic and
you get mad.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't see the reverse, because that release of chemicals from being pissed off, the fight or flight or whatever reaction you're getting from being happy to pissed off, you don't get the reverse of it very often, because you're not stacking a different sort of reaction chemically. Okay. But it's still, because you can go from pissed off or from happy to pissed off in an instant, the reverse has to be true, because all that is just a different chemical concoction releasing throughout your body.
Mm-hmm.
And it preps you. It gets you ready to fight, gets you mad, gets you angry, gets your voice louder, more adrenaline flowing, all that stuff. The exact opposite is true. So, with that being said, if that is the case, you can make a logical choice to put yourself in a situation where you'll have a happy input, regardless of your thought process, your state of being, to change your state to whatever you want, the outcome you want. And this is ultimately what it's all about, is changing your state, whether it is over a long period of time or instantaneously, to achieve different outcomes.
Right.
Now, I bring up the wound situation because it takes your body time to physically rewire. Okay. But if you have a powerful enough incentive, you can change any habit instantaneously.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though, like, it takes time for that
to decay
and wither.
But if you get conscious about it, you can physically override that impulse or that chemical concoction by changing the inputs in your brain to release another chemical concoction, which is why I brought up when you hit rock bottom, you made the choice to focus on processes.
Yeah.
Okay, that wasn't over a period of time. Like, you made that choice and it started the process to get where you ultimately are.
Right.
But you made that choice. Why? Because your pain was so much greater than what you were currently doing, of basically staying the same.
Right.
That you made a radical decision to change your life.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're right. The choice can be instantaneous, but you're right. It's the process of building a new habit. It wasn't overnight that I just kind of transformed. Right. You still fight the demons. You still are tempted with whatever the habits are that you're trying to break. Like, you still have to go through a healthy process of adopting new and healthy and wholesome things, and discarding things that aren't necessarily serving you. All that was a gradual process, but it started with kind of that moment of, I got to do better. I know I was built better than this. I have a grand design to have a bigger impact than this. Like, I need to fully utilize what I was put here for, and that for me was an instantaneous.
Yeah.
I got to do better moment.
Yeah. And like I've been there. Like I mine was when I hurt my back and I couldn't crawl from my car door to my front door after practice during college basketball, and it's like, okay, the pain is so intense here that I have to start making different choices, identifying what's going wrong, all this other stuff. Otherwise, I will physically die.
Yeah.
Like, that was the choices. And what I'm trying to illuminate by talking about the time duration, when you were talking about your demons, that was just your body physically decaying certain thought patterns versus building new ones.
Mm-hmm.
So those old ones were still firing, but you were still consciously making a decision.
Absolutely.
To override it.
Every day. Every day. And it was the stacking, and the stacking a piece of the stacking comes from a vision. Mm-hmm. You got to have a vision, and because the vision is what's going to override the pleasure, the perception of what this vision will, the pleasure of what this vision will bring. So the moment I established a vision for my life of what does a full potential Jarvis look like? What could I accomplish? What impact could I have? The moment I got really clear on that, the draw to that vision was more pleasurable than the pleasure of doing whatever these things were that were not serving me. That's how I stacked. My stacking started with the vision, and that vision is what really drew me to adopting behaviors that aligned with that vision, because that for me was more pleasurable to the thought of achieving this vision than whatever these momentary devices were that weren't serving me.
And that's powerful. But a lot of people don't ever get that vision of what they can become. Yeah. So many people are affected, myself included. Like, I have had self-doubts more times than I can count. And that self-doubt, the thing that derides the vision or derails the vision, all that is a simple firing of certain neurons.
Yeah.
Like, once you realize that, it's so powerful, because you can physically pick and choose which things you want to keep, which things you want to get rid of.
Yeah. Just make the decision. Now, and so I love that. And that's, as we're talking this out, it's kind of helping me assess and validate how I did make that decision. And that a lot, I'm trying to break it down, was why still do so many people, they know the decision and they don't make it. They actively don't make the right decision every day. Cake or broccoli. I know I should eat this broccoli, but God damn it, I'm gonna eat this cake. Right? Yeah. They know it. They sit there, they stop, they have the aha moment, they stop, they process it. And even after processing it, they will still do the thing that doesn't align with their, doesn't serve them. Yeah. And as we're talking through this, it just became more and more clear that it's the vision that draws you to the thing that you should be doing.
Yes.
That's the starting place of the stack.
Yes.
The stack has to start. It's not just, grandchildren grandchildren could be a part of the vision.
Yeah.
The stack starts with, what is your vision? What's the vision if you were to map out your grand design, your highest output in life, what you were designed and created for and put here for to accomplish, write that out. What is it that you were put here to accomplish, and get really connected to that? I think that's what's going to be strong enough to get you to, in that moment, like, nah, bro, I'm good on the cake because I was built and put here to have an impact on this world. And I can only do that if I'm healthy, wholesome, and strong. So give me the broccoli, right? It's that vision that's going to draw you to making the right call. And that's part of the stack. The vision is the stack.
Yeah, exactly. The individual portions of your vision is
the stack. Right? You got to get really clear on what that vision is, right? And that's what's going to stack the pleasure of you accomplishing that vision is going to outweigh anything.
Exactly.
It's going to outweigh any of the, whatever momentary devices you have. When you look at how does that stack up to you living your grand design, boy, I don't know who would turn to a cigarette or to some to whatever it is their device is. It should not compare. It should pale in comparison to what your vision is, and if it doesn't, then you probably got to start at square one, which is the vision.
Exactly.
You gotta get really clear on what it is that between your mix of talents, skills, abilities, and life's experiences. You were built to do more than what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone on this earth is here for a reason and here for an impact. And when you get clear on what that is for you, boy, that's so strong.
Yeah.
Like that's what drew me into this space of living my full and best life. Was the vision. It was the moment I journaled 2 pages. I still have them in my journal. I have 2 full pages of what my ideal life looked like. I wasn't married at the time, but what my wife would look like, what our children not look like, but me being in marriage, what that would be like, the legacy I would leave with kids, the type of lifestyle I really, really got clear and mapped it out. And every day I read it and read it and read it, and it just implanted in my heart. And boy, once I got clear on that, I never wanted to do any of that other stuff anymore because I knew I had to fulfill this.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a long-winded.
No, that's perfect. And you bring up something that's really, really key in this entire equation. Okay, once you get the vision, once you start making the different choices, once you have those old habits starting to decay and new habits starting to form, okay, how do you repeat it?
Yeah.
You find other things that do not serve you. You create a new vision for that, or just keep your old vision with everything that's encompassing.
Yeah.
And you just rinse and repeat.
Totally.
And it becomes conscious. And then you start getting to the point where you will literally start preemptively deciding what to do. And a good example, like I have a sweet tooth. Okay. I love cake. I love donuts. I love ice cream. It's like my one vice.
Same here.
Okay. But I've been focusing on getting my abs like amazingly strong and like model abs and all that stuff, right? Because that's something
12-pack.
Yeah, exactly. But that's something that I've never really achieved in my life. I've been an athlete my entire life, but I've never really achieved it. Why? Because I always ate a bunch of sugar, right? Okay, well, last week, I started to notice new definition. I was like, holy shit, this is kind of cool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, this thing works.
Yeah, and that released a pleasure of chemical concoction within my body that I was like, this result is awesome. So last night I had a friend over and she brought ice cream. And we had a healthy dinner.
Temptation.
Yeah, we had it was gelato. It was like this. I don't even know what it is. I haven't actually touched it. But she brought it over and I was like, no, I'm good. Like I'll eat this. We had potatoes, meatloaf, and veggies. It's like I'll eat this stuff. I don't need that. Yeah. Why? Because that pleasure from that image a week ago was so powerful to me that it outweighed me a little sugar.
Yeah, the momentum.
Yeah, and it was like that, and I was just thinking about that when you were talking about it, and I was like, holy shit, like that's powerful because I love sugar. And I have for 35 years and 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's truly amazing because once you realize that all your outcomes are derived by your thought processes and your actions, and that you can physically change your thought processes and your actions.
Yep.
Like that is a massive whoa.
Yeah.
Boom, mind blown.
And a lot of people, they feel like they define themselves by their decisions, by their past. And they don't realize how powerful that is when you say, oh no, well, that's just who I am. I'm a smoker. I'm just fat, or like, and so then they kind of fall into the label that they've given themselves, and they don't realize or recognize the power of like, no, you're not a slave to that.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah, that may have been a past decision you've made. That may have been a past scenario. That may be a part of what your journey or your process is, but that's not you don't have to be that. Like you can decide, no, at this given moment, I'm going to actively choose to do these new habits that's going to serve me, because that may be a part of who I was, but that's not a part of who I am.
Yes.
That may have given me some experience that I can just use that's going to propel me to where I should be, but I'm not a slave to that.
Yeah.
Like I can choose something different.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know, like you said, they don't understand that they truly do have the power to choose different.
Yeah. And it's funny, I call those stories. Okay. And if you really think about it, your habits, your who you think you are not really derived by yourself. They're derived by all the people as you're growing up telling you who and what you are.
Yeah.
And those are just stories that are told from some outside perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. But we get to firmly believe that. Why? Because of the firing of the neurons. They get so efficient that it becomes second nature. Okay. But that was one thing that I struggled with dramatically, and I still do in some cases, is I allowed my stories to define me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think those habits, smoking, eating a lot, are so powerful, is because once they become stories, people just accept them as fact, but it's not fact at all.
They just fall right into it, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
It's ridiculous.
But it keeps coming back to this, like, how do you stack and incentivize? Like, when you create a big enough vision, then you know that you have to be your best self to fulfill that vision. So you'll take care of yourself. You will actively start making decisions that's in alignment with you being the person that can fulfill this vision that you have, right?
Yeah.
And so it comes back to that central point of starting at square one, is how do you stack your incentive stacking to make it bigger than whatever the habit is, and then how do you keep it going?
Yeah.
Right? How do you keep? I like that what you said is the hardest part is getting something started. The minute you get some momentum, it becomes easy.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you started to see some results, the minute you saw one ab show up, oh hell, forget that cake. I ain't even know. I got one ab. I'm on my way to getting two. I'm not gonna mess up this progress. You're not gonna want to ruin the progress. So it gets so much easier once you start to get some progress made.
So we've covered how and the why, kind of, not so much into the why, but with your ACG Morning Hero, okay, how do you bring this to the masses so they believe it? Okay, because a lot of people will listen to this and they're like, that makes great sense, but it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. It's so one, I have people like you come and speak and kind of share messages like this to empower people. They need to hear other stories. So one of the things that is necessary for any growth journey is community. You got to tap into some community people, other people that's on that journey, people that's been through the journey, tapping into the stories of that other people have gone through. That's where you're really kind of get motivation, encouragement, and best practices of this whole growth thing. So with Accelerated Growth Club, I just try to provide a venue. I create an atmosphere where where hordes of like-minded people, growth-minded people can come together, share those stories, connect with each other, encourage each other, motivate each other. And in that's where you kind of find your strength to achieve what you need to achieve. So just having people like you come and share stories like this, share messages like this, that's kind of one of the best ways that people can kind of stay encouraged and stay fueled on their growth journey.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate you for having me on and speaking, because like I said, this sort of interaction like gives me higher energy, which is amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, it's important, man. It's such an important topic because everyone wants to do right. Everyone wants, but they struggle with how do I I got this vice over here. I know what I should do, but I just can't stop doing these things that I know aren't serving me. And so this topic is such an important one. And if you can tell, I get fueled up when I talk about it, because you're right. For me and you, it's easy to say, well, just stop doing that. Make the right decision.
Yeah.
But now we get down to the tactical. How do you actually make a different decision?
Yeah.
That's such a powerful, that's a key. That's such a nugget that so many people struggle with. How do I actually make the decision to do the right thing instead of doing the easy thing or doing the thing that doesn't necessarily serve me? And so this is a topic that I'm fueled up about. I mean, you could write a book about it.
Actually, that's probably true. Like, now that I think about it, it's like, why not? Like, this sort of information isn't really out there. Like, yes, you make decisions, you weigh things and everything, but the actual physical process of how your body is actually relating.
I wish we had a whiteboard, because when we first got together, we drew it out, like what neural pathways look like. How do you
forgot about that?
How do you get them to actually start decaying so that you can create new neural pathways that are stronger than the old ones? Like, it gets really scientific, but it's actually really, when you can visualize it, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then, it actually kind of helps you process it.
So I'm gonna try to, because I forgot the whiteboard. That's on me. Nick, we need to get a whiteboard next time. For the process of visualization, if you think of your neural connection as a finger, right? Every time it fires, your finger gets fatter. Every time you consciously resist that firing, it starts to get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, until you start creating new neural connections that start sprouting off in another direction. Every time they fire, they get fatter. Every time they don't fire, they get skinnier.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And it's that process. And it is literally, if you think about it, if you have an ingrained habit, everyone's like, if you do something for 20 days, it becomes a habit. 90 days, it becomes a lifestyle. But if you've been ingrained for something for decades, okay, physically getting rid of that old neural connection or neural connections might take like 6 months, 8 months. I know that some of my major wounds have taken almost a year to heal.
Yeah.
It just depends on how ingrained that connection is, and how many individual cells that need to be physically taken apart and taken off that connection. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
So anyhow, like, I love conversations like this, and I appreciate you immensely, because we've had a couple of them like this now, and it's awesome.
Every time, and it's about a different topic every time. We can record every time we get together, and I'm sure it'll...
We should, actually. Yeah. Nick's raising his hand. Well, Jarvis, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Before we start winding this down, where can people find you, first and foremost?
Yeah, so themorninghero.com. So it's themorninghero, all one word, .com. If you're struggling with waking, I'm morning hero, so obviously I preach the importance of your morning. Your morning is your sanctuary.
Yes.
It's where all your growth will happen. So I show people kind of a step-by-step, easy to follow process of how to build extreme raging momentum in the morning that's going to supercharge their life, that's going to help them flourish in everything, their family, their friends, their health and fitness, their professional life, whatever it is, it will flourish if you can kind of hone in on a couple easy to follow habits in the morning. And so themorninghero.com, I have a couple of guides, free guides they can download to kind of start them on that journey.
Yes.
of living their best life and just hacking their goals and dreams and making them realities.
Nice. Well, everyone go out, check out themorninghero.com. Jarvis, as always, man, you're impeccably dressed, and I thank you. Like, I'm casual today because...
well, your head is impeccably shiny, so
thank you.
You got me there.
Thank you.
I didn't shave this morning, so...
Life of a bald man right there. For everyone that's listening, thank you for listening to this episode. If you liked it, please subscribe, like, share it with people, and go to patreon.com/PSTV and drop a few dollars if you want some extra content. We got it on there. It's good, bad, ugly. It's all perspective, actually, but hey, that's another topic. So anyhow, thank you all for listening, And this is the first episode of Unsubstantiated Genius signing off. Have a great day. A PSTV production.